Our next speaker serves as the recruiting and training manager for the Tampa Bay Bucks. She's responsible for sourcing, screening, interviewing, and referring top candidates to hiring managers on the business side of the Buccaneers organization. Also identifies training needs, develops programs, and facilitates training sessions for the business staff. Previously, she worked with the Bucks in luxury suites and group sales in an account executive role. Before joining the Bucks, she worked in Major League Baseball with the Washington Nationals. She was also an assistant recruiting coordinator for the University of Maryland's football program, and that is where she earned her degree from the University of Maryland. She lives in Tampa with her husband, and she has 6-year-old twins. So please welcome Bree Parker.
Good morning, everybody. Can you guys hear me okay? Thank you so much for coming out today and listening to me speak. I think I'm happy that you guys are here because a lot of what I'm saying today is what you guys are asking me at my table in the networking fair. So it's an opportunity for me to share that with you all at once. And I hope when you leave here today that you have a lot of valuable information that will help you prepare yourself for the next step in your career. For many of you, that's graduation, getting interviews, applying for different jobs, moving on to the next job or next station in your career, if you will. You might wonder, I mean, obviously he gave a great introduction, but just a review of where I've been and where I've been working. University of Maryland is where I started my career. Funny enough, I have a degree in art. I was not planning on having a career in sports, but it has drawn me in and has kept me here. I walked away from it for a 6-year period and it grabbed me back in again, and I think I'm very fortunate to have that opportunity, and that doesn't happen to people, so I feel very lucky, and once I recognized how lucky I was, I'm never going to walk away from it again. It's definitely where I'm happiest. The Washington Nationals is the team that gave me that second opportunity. I was recruited to work for them. I was one of the first salespeople to work for the Washington Nationals when they moved to DC from Montreal. Had a great experience. Being part of a startup, I had an opportunity to do a lot of things that a sales professional doesn't typically get to do, like pulling tarp and creating different areas to sell for our group programs and parties and such. A lot of really cool stuff. And I'm proud to say that my name is on a big board behind home plate in Nationals Park as one of the founding employees of the organization. So if you're ever there, take a peek. It'll say Bree Wagner, which is my maiden name. And then I had an opportunity, fortunately, to join the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after I became a mom. My husband works in baseball, go Dodgers. Unfortunately, we lost. But so it's tough to work in sports, 2 parents in sports, especially one in scouting. He's traveling all the time, so I needed a switch, and I thought, let me go back to my roots in football. 10 games versus 81, sounds like I can be a better mom, and it's definitely worked out in that manner. Becoming the recruiting and training manager has allowed me to have a better work-life balance, which I think is something that we should all think about in our future, male and female. If we're the husband, let's think about supporting the wife and not helping her, but doing the things at home that allow her to be successful in her career as well. And ladies, look for a man who's willing to be your partner and not help you. Because when you're at home doing your own stuff, you're not helping to do your own laundry, you're doing your own laundry. So think about those things as you move forward, that work-life balance. What qualifies me to tell you about your resume and cover letter and those type of things that you're all asking me about? Well, I've had a lot of opportunities here. In this role, for the past 3 years with the Bucks as recruiting and training manager, I have reviewed thousands of resumes and cover letters every year. It's a lot. Hundreds for each position that I post. I've conducted over 1,000 job interviews, either by phone, Skype, or in person. And I've recommended qualified candidates for many roles within the Buccaneers organization, full-time, part-time, game day, and temporary. And through my time with the organization, many wonderful people have helped me progress through my career. Those opportunities were given to me. I sought them out, I worked my butt off, I showed them that I was worthy, and they gave me the opportunities. And I enjoy paying that forward, and I hope that you'll do the same. So I'm here today telling you guys these things because someone helped me, and I want you to benefit from all that information that I've gained over the years. What have I learned? Well, I've learned what a great resume looks like, the ones that kind of rise to the top of the pile and stay there. Why some capture my attention when others I just really don't care to read. What makes a cover letter great, and what makes a great interview. And I'm going to share these things with you guys as we speak this morning. I really want you to avoid common mistakes, and these things are real things that have occurred, and I'm going to tell you how to avoid them. And I'm here today because I've seen them from people from all different universities, and I want you guys to use the resources so you don't make these mistakes. I want you to apply to positions that you're passionate about doing, that you enjoy, that you're qualified for and that will build your career. Don't just take a job because it's a paycheck. Think about where you want to go and how that job will help you to get there. And when you read a job description and you get excited about it, that's a sign that that's the right job. If you're reading a job description and you're like, well, I guess I could do that, don't waste your time, because you're going to waste somebody else's time too looking at your resume. You always want to include a great cover letter written for that position. So I see a lot of mass-produced cover letters. So someone will write a cover letter for every job that they might ever apply for, and I read that and I know that that's what they've done because it doesn't have anything specific related to the organization that I work for or the job that they're pursuing. Immediately, those are ruled out. They don't care about that job. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Always, always, always convert your documents to PDF before you send them. If you don't, oops, sorry, I had a picture that's not popping up. I will show you what it looks like when I receive a document that has not been converted to PDF that has lost its formatting. It is not pretty, and it's very hard for me to understand what you're presenting to me if that happens. So I'll show you that in just a moment. You want to make sure you check your voicemail and your email inboxes regularly and empty your voicemail box. I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to somebody to schedule an interview and their voicemail is full, so I can't leave them a message, or their voicemail isn't set up, or they don't have a name on their voicemail, so I'm not really sure that I've reached the person that I'm trying to reach, or I send an email and I never hear back. If they were checking their voicemail and their email and they saw or heard a message from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, don't you think they'd reply? It's a clear sign to me that they're not checking. So please don't fall into that trap. And it's hard to keep up, I know sometimes, but you can make a VIP section in your email inboxes to get those special emails that you're looking for. And you want to always share the documents that you're submitting, your resume and cover letter, as well as the job description with your mentors. And the reason why I want you to share that job description is because you can bring me your resume and cover letter. I don't know what job that you're going after, but I can look at it and say, yeah, it looks great. But unless I see that job description, I can't tell if you've really presented yourself well for that position. And that's really what you're trying to do. So make sure they have all the tools to help you succeed and use their feedback. And you're going to be talking to people who haven't applied to jobs in 20 years. Take that, with what it's worth. You're going to be talking to people who review resumes and cover letters like me, or interview regularly and hire people. Those are the people who you want to value what they have to say because they're in it in real time and it's new and fresh to them and they have experience behind what they're telling you. And you always want to check for spelling and grammatical errors. So one of my little pet peeves is I read cover letters regularly, as we talked about. People will say, I want to be a part of your organization. And they use the word apart. A-P-A-R-T. You know what that means? You do not want to be part of my organization. You want to be a part of my organization. That's a part, 2 words. And I see this all the time. It's a common mistake. So just be careful. Or you're writing something about something that belongs to you, and you're saying Y-O-U-R-E, and it should be Y-O-U-R. Those things matter. Those are details. I know it might seem really minuscule, but when you're working for an organization, you're a brand ambassador for that organization, and every word you write and every word you say reflects back on that organization. I'm looking for that good brand ambassador who already has that part down, so we just need to teach you about our organization. Here's the infamous unformatted resume. Isn't that terrible? It runs off the page. You don't know who it is, you don't know where they worked, it's just awful. So please protect your documents by converting them into a PDF. All right, let's talk about cover letters. Cover letters are really important. When I'm reviewing candidates, I aggregate them through Teamwork Online. If you don't know what that is, I have a flyer on my table in the networking fair to tell you all about it. But that's where I aggregate all my candidates for every job. I'm posting it on Teamwork, I'm posting it on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and several other areas are picking it up. But all my applicants kind of gather together on Teamwork, and they give me this really cool mobile platform to review. I have an opportunity to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. The first thing I look at is the cover letter. If there's no cover letter there, I don't go on. Immediate thumbs down. So don't rule yourself out quickly by not giving me a cover letter. And it should be written as a professional letter, not look at me for this job or something silly. Take it seriously. If you don't take it seriously, I won't take you seriously. All right. Again, always include a cover letter. In that cover letter, I have 1,000 people every day telling me why they want to work for the Buccaneers. Why is the Buccaneers a great company? Guess what? I know why they're a great company. That's why I'm there. But I want you to tell me, why do you belong there? Why should I hire you? Tell me what I can't read in your resume. Tell me about your personal characteristics, your traits, the things that make you a good employee, the things that make you good for the Buccaneers. And allow your personality to shine through. I'm looking for great people. I'm looking for personality. I'm looking for somebody I want to work beside. I want to work in a fun environment, so I'm looking for fun people. You know, inject your personality. If you're a creative, fun person, show me that. You know, don't take yourself too seriously, I guess. And keep it short. No more than 3 brief paragraphs, please. I'm reading many of them. So make it easy on my eyes, make it easy on me. Don't make me sit there and read a book. Because guess what? If you write me a long book, I'm going to skim it, look for what I'm looking for, and if I don't see it, I'm going to move on. If you make it short and concise, I'm going to read every word of it. So do yourself that favor. Always speak professionally, use proper grammar and language. And please don't regurgitate your resume. I've seen people in their cover letter, they take the jobs and each skill within every job, and when they work there, and they just paste it right in the cover letter. Why do I need to look at your resume at that point? You know, just you can talk about where you worked and what you learned in those jobs, but don't reiterate everything. That's what your resume is for. Tell me about you. And again, I said it before, you want to customize it for every job that you apply for. You might have some language that you use over and over, but make sure that you're making it about that job and that company. And again, proofread it. Ask someone else to proofread it. Your spell check may not pick up on your versus your, or apart versus apart. When you read it, you're going to read it the way you intended it. If you let somebody else read it, they're going to pick up on the things that you're missing. So a roommate, a mentor, a brother, a mother, a father, an aunt. I look to my brother and my aunt every time I need to do something professional, outside of work obviously. For myself personally, I always share it with them and say, hey, what do you think about this? Mentors are important. Use them. And again, that PDF is super important. Here's a sample cover letter. This is a gentleman who worked for us as an intern, and I hired him as a graphic designer. I highly recommended him, and they picked him. He was already an employee of the Buccaneers when he wrote this cover letter. That's how seriously he took it. I think it's super important. He showed us that he really wanted this job. But I want to point out that he showed me, again, those character traits that you can't read in the resume. Even though we knew him, he pointed the things out about himself that he wanted us to see. And when we were honed in on those things, because he showed us, you know, we knew what we were looking for, and he just reaffirmed our feeling that we already thought he was good, but now he was like, okay, we know he's great. You know, he reminded us, he's demonstrated these things in his job. So he's capable of working independently or as part of a team. He's excellent at problem-solving skills. He developed his skills, building relationships within other departments. He's a good employee. He fits within the whole organization, not just in his job. And he talks about his previous experience. He just kind of talks about it briefly. I was a lead graphic designer, I was at LU Radio and a freelancer, and he just kind of alludes to it. And now I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna read more about how does UPS really relate to this, to the Buccaneers? And then when I looked at it, I realized what he was doing. He was actually designing things for clients of UPS. Sounds like it might be minuscule, but what he was doing was really involved because he was in a very small town, and that was the only entity in that town to get that service. Pretty important. Great sample cover letter. Let's talk about resumes. And I've given you some examples here, really fun ones and not so fun ones. So you can see kind of what I'm looking at. So you guys live in a very special time. You know, you live in a digital age. I want you to use the color, use the logos, use the icons and images and imagery that you see on your phone, on your iPad, online, you know, around you, and integrate that into your resume. Make it interesting for me to look at. And you want to include all of your relevant experience. And you can list relevant experience in every job you've done. If you're just graduating college, volunteerism counts. And then if you have other stuff that you've done that you think we need to know, that you bartended, so we know that you talk to any kind of person, that should be under other experience. That's the way I like to see it. And you know, it's subjective. Other recruiters might like to see it in a different way. But this is what works for me and what works for the Buccaneers, and often is the same across all people in my role. Again, those experiences, paid or not, should be in there. List the other ones as other experience. Demonstrate that you qualify for the job through the duties in each of those roles. And I always tell people, take your own resume and that job description. Highlight everything on the job description that you know you've done, and make sure that stuff is showing in the resume that you're going to submit for this job. And it's a good idea, if it's at the top of the job description, it's super important to us. So make sure you show it through your experience that you've done that job and that you've learned that skill. Super important. And this is probably the most important thing that you guys will hear all day. This resume is about you. It is your advertisement for you. You're the only person that can write it. You should invest your time in it because it represents you. I can't say that enough. Like, if you send me that other thing that I showed you, what am I going to think of you? If you send me something beautiful, I'm going to think, wow, this is a really interesting person. So you're somewhere in that spectrum. Hopefully you're at the really cool end. But I want you to take that time and invest in yourself and realize that you're worth it. And the people that you're going to ask for advice on it feel that you're worth it too, and they will take that time to share with you. Don't be lazy. Don't let me rule you out. My job is to take hundreds of resumes and find a handful of people. So I'm looking for any way to rule people out. The spelling areas I talked about, not including a cover letter, being lazy in your cover letter, not using proper grammar or English, showing me that you can't communicate verbally or written in the way you communicate with me through the process. Those are things that will rule you out. And keep it to one page, please. Be concise. Share the details in the interview. Draw me in with the resume and the cover letter. But you have to find a way to say all that stuff that you did in as few words as possible. And you may need to generalize it, and although you value every task that you did and everything that you learned, find a way to kind of generalize it and absorb it into less sentences. Unless you need to fill the page, and then by all means. When you talk about volunteerism, tell me what you did. So many people just put Susan B. Komen 2014. What does that mean to me? You could have just registered and not even run the race, right? But I want to see you did fundraising and event planning. You were a key member of the team to plan that event. And you did it for 3 to 4 years. That means a whole lot more to me than just Susan B. Komen 2014. So share with, and you can do it this concisely. It's pretty easy, right? It helps a lot, especially when you're coming off of being in college, maybe you're a college athlete and you haven't really had time to work. You got to show me that you've been involved in things and that should take a chance on you, that you've put yourself out there. This is an example of a resume with limited experience. So many of you may be in this boat. Hopefully you guys have stuff to put on there. Some things that you might include would be the related coursework, personal skills and attributes. I don't want to see those on a resume of somebody who's got a great deal of work experience. I want to see those only on a resume when you haven't worked a lot and you want to show me what you're learning that relates to the job. If it doesn't relate to the job, don't include it. If you've learned special skills that apply to the job, include those. Again, all prior work or volunteer experience. So you see how I have here, this person said work experience, and they talked about how they worked here, what they did on campus. Very concise, 2 to 3 bullets per job, very well done. And then they talk about the other things that they've done, involvement down below, which are those volunteer opportunities. All very important. They showed me what they did in each one of those, and they did a great job with it. So that's the leadership roles, sports, and activities. I had this flying in and it was going to be neat, but we'll talk about first this young lady here. She actually applied for a position as a writer for our organization, writing for our web pages and social media, and I loved her. I thought, gosh, look at that personality. Like, you could see who she is through this resume, right? You guys agree? She did a great job, and she made it look like a little passport. She used that visualization and showed me her creativity through the way she presented her resume. Content's great. She put a picture on there. I usually don't recommend including a picture, but this picture tells me a lot about her personality, doesn't it? She's fun, right? But I don't want you to include a picture because it allows people to create bias for or against you as a candidate before they've even looked at what you've done. Because the first thing you guys saw on this was her picture, right? So, I don't want to know your race, your gender, your religion, if you're married, if you're single, how old you are, if you have kids. I don't want to know any of that stuff. That does not matter when I'm trying to hire you. What matters is this stuff, what she's done in her work environment. So it's nice that you guys want to share that, but wait until after you're hired, and then tell us about all the great things that you do, personally, and what a great mom you are, or dad, or whatever. But don't let people in my position. I try to rule out all my own biases when I'm looking at candidates, and I know many people in my role do. But it's really easy for it to seep in if it's there. So don't allow it to seep in. Tyler Trout, this gentleman over here, he actually works with us as a graphic designer for the Buccaneers. And I loved his resume so much. And as I went through, you guys will notice I kind of blacked out, it might be showing up, I actually blacked out all their personal information because I didn't have the permission from all of them. But Tyler, I specifically asked for permission because I had to show his name in order to show how cool of a job he did presenting his resume. So he's a graphic designer. He took his own name and made it a design, and then the way he's presented his experience here is so concise. I know everything I need to know about him from this little strip of information, and it definitely stood out, and it went right to the top of the pile. And when I met him, he was just as dynamic as his resume made shtick. Both of them, wonderful people. So for creative resumes, you want to show your creativity, demonstrate it through your resume always. And I think, hopefully these, as we're talking about these different things, they're showing you all the different types of jobs that you could do with the Buccaneers. Sorry, this one got a little weird too. So this resume is a typical resume that I see every day. I get stacks and stacks of these all the time. It blends in with everything else. On first glance, you don't really want to read it. But when you do read it, when I started to skim it, I thought, gosh, this guy's got great content. I'm really going to continue to read and deep read. And when I read on, I found out that this person was very well qualified for the job, but he's lucky that I read it, all of it. And he presented the information well. So, but just be creative, don't blend in, stand out. Have fun with it. These people had a good time with it. There's a lot of information on these resumes. And I know someone like me, I've been in the business for 20, 25 years. I would need to put a lot of information on my resume to show you what I've done. But these people show me it's possible to do that and still make it fun and interesting and something that I would want to read. Hopefully these examples show you just some of the fun things that you can do with your resume. And you know, when you're going through that process, you submit your resume, it's weeks sometimes, it might be months depending on the company, before you hear anything. And all of a sudden you get a call for an interview and you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that. Or the next thing you hear is 2 months later, you're not being considered for this role. Or maybe it's 2 weeks later. But sometimes it can take a long time. And what you have to remember is that there's a lot involved in the process of selecting candidates. My name is behind who I recommend. I'm putting my own reputation on the line when I recommend you. I want to be sure that you're the right person. I want to be sure that I'm reviewing the resumes and finding the people that really should be included in the interview process. And then we take time with that process, interviewing those folks first by phone, then in person, checking references before we move on into a personal interview with the hiring manager. So just be patient, and we will be in touch with you. A lot of times I'll go through and I'll do a first pass and I'll roll a bunch of people out and I'll send them a note and say, hey, we're not thinking about you for this job, so that you don't have to worry about us anymore. And then there's a kind of a group of people that sit in the middle. They're good, but there's this other group that I really want to interview, and they're the people that are hearing from me right now. This group in the middle, like they're really wondering what's going on. And if I get through these top candidates and I haven't found the one that I really think is going to be the one, or the 2 or 3 that I'm going to recommend, then I'm going to dig into that next group. And I'm not going to say no until I'm certain that they are not a person that I want to push forward. What can you do while you wait? Use your network. Use your connections with that organization to reach out and say, hey, can you put my resume in front of this person? Can you make a recommendation? I can't tell you how many times I've been looking at resumes and I have somebody on the top of my pile, and suddenly I get an email from a colleague that says, hey, this person applied, they're really interested, they really want this job, I worked with them before, and here's how I feel about them. Guess what? That person has now even got more weight in my book. Or maybe I've already ruled them out, but this person that I work with who I highly respect says, hey, take another look at this person. That matters to me. But you don't want to be a nuisance, though. You want to have somebody share it for you or share it yourself, and then just kind of hang back and wait. And the waiting, I know, is the hardest part. And I am aware that the waiting is the hardest part, so I always try to get with you as soon as I possibly can. When it comes to the interview, this information, I think, applies to all interviews that you're going to do, no matter what format, the purple here. You always want to research the company, the role, and the interviewer. It allows you to find common ground. So I know that, like for myself, if I call somebody for an interview and they say, hey, Bree, I looked at your LinkedIn profile and I saw that you worked for the Nationals. Well, I know so-and-so from the Nationals. Did you work with them? Suddenly we're friendly. And that friendly conversation makes me think, oh, I like this person. And they like me, and because they like me and we have that common ground, they're relaxed. I always try to put people at ease anyway, because I want to see who you really are, not who you are when you're nervous. But it just makes that common ground. I actually had a meeting at St. Leo University, and one of the young ladies that works with me at the Bucks told me that this professor I was meeting with was really difficult to get along with, and that nobody liked her. I thought, gosh, I don't really want to go to a meeting like that. So I went on LinkedIn, I looked this woman up, and I found that one of my best friends knows her. And so when I went to meet with her, she was on my turf, it was a $1 place. I brought her in the elevator and I said, hey, I see that you know Scolo, and that's my friend's nickname. And as soon as you throw out the nickname, she's like, you know Scolo? And her facade just Immediately went away and we were fast friends, and we've been friends ever since. So if you could find that common ground by researching the interviewer, it makes it so much easier. But when you get in that interview, I'm going to ask you, if you're interviewing for a community relations position, I want to know what you know about our programs out in the community. If you don't know anything, you're not likely to move on unless you're a very dynamic individual. And please know about the role. Please review the job description. If you're scheduled for an interview and you have that job description, you can't access it anymore because teamwork shut you out of it, ask the interviewer, hey, can I see another copy of that job description? Oh, I'd be happy to. That's showing initiative. And I really want you to be familiar with what we're talking about when we talk. Always have a pen and paper handy, bottle of water, take notes, ask questions, have the questions ready in advance. At the end of every interview, I say, what questions do you have for me? The worst answer you can have is none. Really? You're not interested in working for my company? What did I miss? Hopefully I've told you a lot of information through the interview, but you should have one or two questions that I didn't answer. And sometimes I'll purposely leave out information to bait people into asking me a question. And you gotta relax. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Be confident and be you. I had a candidate this week, or actually an interviewer last week, wonderfully qualified for an executive assistant position for one of our chiefs. When I first started our Skype interview, she was nervous, and I could see it. And soon she calmed down, and we had a great interview, great rapport. I loved her. She had an amazing skill set, my top candidate for the job. I put her through to interview with our chief. He met her. Again, he loved her. He said, you know what I'm really worried about? She was so nervous. I'm afraid that she's not going to be able to talk to her owners or her partners or whoever it is that I need to put her in front of. Is she going to be nervous every day? I'm really worried about that. So with her permission, she allowed us to reach out to her current boss, and he talked to her on the phone for 30 minutes about why she's so nervous. And what he uncovered that was in the interview with that boss, she was also very nervous. She performed very well on the job. She was only nervous when she was speaking about herself. Because the job that she performed as an executive assistant, it's not about her, it's about the person she's supporting. So she felt uncomfortable making it about her. So we did a little more digging and a little more research, and we brought her in again and had her meet with our VP of HR, and we dug through it, and we realized, you know what, we're going to take a chance on this young lady because she's worth it. She's got a lot of great skills to bring to the table, and we don't think it's going to be an issue. So even if you are nervous, if you still have the strong skill set behind it, we can sometimes see through that, but don't make us have to do that. Just try to relax. I see people who come in for an in-person interview and they've had 3 cups of coffee. You know, they can't sit still, or they're like fidgeting in their chair the whole time, and I'm distracted by how they're playing with their necklace or tucking their hair behind their ear, but they've had so much coffee that or caffeine or whatever it is, that they just can't sit still. So drink water to prepare. Bring it with you when you're nervous, your mouth might get dry. Bring some tissues or something to wipe your hands on because they might get sweaty. But just relax and be you. Always be professional in the way you look, act, and speak, and keep it going through the entire process, and I'll get into that a little bit more too. Don't ever drop, actually I'll tell you right now. So I had a candidate who I loved for a job working in youth football development, and the job was he was going to go out in the community and put on these camps for kids. He wasn't going to have much Buccaneer supervision when he was with them, he was going to be out there on his own. Son of a preacher man, great person, football coach, he had everything we were looking for, and we loved him. He interviewed with the hiring manager in person at One Buck Place, drove all the way over from Miami. They get in the elevator. The hiring manager's like, yeah, I'm going to hire this guy. He gets into the elevator, and the guy drops the professionalism. And he starts talking to them like they're neighborhood buddies. And the hiring manager comes back upstairs, and he says, you know, I was going to hire this guy, but now I don't know how he's going to act. He was out in the community without me standing right beside him. He just completely dropped it. And it was a shame because we really loved the guy. So always maintain that professional demeanor and speech all the time. Send a thank you note. I would say write it rather than email it. Email's fine. You know, if you don't have time or ability or whatever, write an email. Send something. But I save the paper thank you notes that you guys send me, and I think a lot of people in my position do, because it reminds me of you. You've alluded to something we talked about. When I see that thank you note, I remember you, and I might think, gosh, this new job came up. I interviewed somebody a while ago. Let me look through this thank you letter, and I can't remember what it was. You know, and it's another way for me to remember you, and I think it's valuable. My boss, our VP of HR, if you don't send her a thank you note, she's not going to put you on any further. So for some people, it's really important etiquette. For other people, it's not as much of a formality, but it definitely is remembered. When you're interviewing on a phone, make sure you have privacy. limit the interruptions and background noise. I interviewed a guy who was in Starbucks at lunchtime. I could not hear a word he said. It was a phone interview. It was scheduled. He knew that we were going to be talking. He could have been better off in his car. But you know, you have people walk, if you're doing it in your dorm room or whatever, and your roommates keep walking in and out, your dog's barking, it's a little distracting. It makes it hard. So I would try to limit that when you can. Things happen, of course, but try to prepare for it. When you're interviewing by Skype, which, you know, these days we can see you face to face through the technology that we have. It's wonderful. I don't have to fly you in for the first round interview. I can check you out on Skype, see how you present yourself, see what kind of body language and rapport you create through Skype, usually pretty closely to what you would do in person. And that in-person interview is usually saved for the end of the process with the Buccaneers. You always want to dress professionally. I've had a guy, actually this happened more than once, but I had a gentleman once who was interviewing by Skype. He was sitting in front of a window a lot like this, and he had the computer in front of him. So all I could see was the outline of his body. So I said, hey, could you just shut the blinds so that I can see your face? He gets up, I see boxer shorts. Sometimes it's pajama pants. Sometimes it's something that doesn't go with the top. You know, just pretend like you're in person, please. You never know what is going to, or your dog walks in, you have to get up and go shut the door and let the dog back out, right? So just be prepared for whatever might happen. And make sure you have a strong internet connection. When I'm scheduling my Skype interviews, I'll send a calendar invite with a link. And I always instruct in that calendar invite and in my follow-up email, please check the link before our scheduled time and make sure that it works. Because if you don't have the technology to support the Skype interview, we can do it by phone, that's fine. I'll just have you come in later and meet me in person. But make sure that the technology is working and that you have a strong internet connection. I've had phone and Skype interviews before where I've spent 10 or 15 minutes trying to just hear the person and get them to move to a spot where I can hear them appropriately. And we've wasted that time that should have been focused on them in the interview. And it's distracting. So be prepared. Take care of those details in advance. Again, the privacy and the background noise. You always want to just make sure you're alone and that people around you know that you have something really important going on. And please put up a sign if you need to. I always put up a sign in my window in my office. Please do not knock or come in. I'm an interview in progress. Stay out of here. This is their time. In-person interviews, plan how you're going to get there ahead of time. Make sure you know what the traffic is like at the same time of day. Arrive early. 5 to 10 minutes is plenty. And be prepared to wait. You know, a secret. So when I went to go interview for the Buccaneers, I was on maternity leave. I'd never been to Tampa Bay to one Buccaneer place. I really didn't know a lot about the Buccaneers. I was in baseball. I didn't really have a lot of time on my hands because of what was going on with my own life. So I didn't have a lot of time to research. I read a little bit while I was on the plane. But when I got in that lobby, I was about 20 minutes early. It's a museum. I got to take the time to look around that lobby and learn about all this background information that I may not have found on the internet. But when I went into that interview, I felt super prepared because it was all just really fresh because I just read it while I was waiting. So that time arriving early allowed me to get even more prepared for my interview. So take advantage of it. If you're not in a museum like that, just look at your phone and use that time wisely. And they may take you early. Always just dress professionally, as you know. Be consistent with the way that you portrayed yourself in the phone or Skype interview prior to your in-person interview. I've seen it sometimes where someone will come in, they did great in the Skype interview. I had a woman who came in with a dog and a carrier. And she didn't tell me that she'd be doing that. And I wish I had known because I probably would have prepared some folks. She was dressed very unprofessionally, but when I Skyped with her, she was in a suit. So I was like, wait a minute. And it made me look bad. And it made her look bad. So for your sake and theirs, just be consistent. And when your interview goes really well, they may introduce you to more people that are involved in that selection process. So make sure you have the time to stick around for another hour or two if needed, longer than you thought. I'm not going to tell you that if this interview goes well, you're going to meet with the VP of HR. I'm just going to take you there because I don't want you to know that the interview didn't go well because you didn't meet that person. So I'm just going to kind of let it unfold, but you should be prepared for that anyway. This is fun. If you don't get the job, it's super important, guys. Don't take it personally. There are hundreds of people going after that job that you were going after. It's not because you're terrible. It's not because you're unworthy. It's because they were better. They were just better prepared. It's not your time. They did better. It wasn't you. They're highly qualified. You just have to keep rising and rising to the occasion. You'll make it there. Always be professional. Here's some examples. This is a gentleman wrote me this note. When I send a mass letter, turn off of the largest group of people that I'm not going to move forward with. And if you have to respond, this is a really good example of how you might do it. While truly disappointed, I appreciate the consideration and look forward to any available opportunity that may arise in the future. Beautiful. I'm definitely going to keep them in mind. Do not send a rude response when you receive a rejection notification. Again, you do not need to reply at all. Definitely don't do this. And these are real responses that I've gotten. Yeah, get lost. Really? Okay. You're not going to be in my pools anymore. It's unbelievable. What do I need to do to improve my resume and get notice? Typo. Should be noticed. Because this is starting to become a recurring thing. Now he's told me that he's getting rejected to all the jobs he applied to. I don't need to know that. Keep that to yourself. But if you want to get some feedback, ask for it in a nice way. You know what, I really want to work for the Buccaneers. What can I do to better position myself to get a job with you guys in the future? It's a great way to ask it. And when I have time, I will respond to those. I'll call those folks and say, hey, this is one thing you were missing, or really work on this skill set. I'll give that feedback if I can. I like to do that. I enjoy it. And I think this is important too. Although you may not be the best person for the role that you applied to today, you may be for something else. If you've impressed me, I will hang on to your information and I will reach out to you later and say, hey, this is a job you should look at. I met a young lady here last year. She approached me before the networking fair even opened, and we got to chatting, and she told me about what she was interested in doing. And I had a position open about 8 months later that sounded like her. And she had stayed in touch with me, and I reached out and I said, hey, look at this job. And she was very interested, and she actually told me, she said, you know what, Bree, I don't think I'm the best person for this job, but I'm going to apply anyway. I've got this other thing lined up. And it turned out she wasn't the best person for the job, but we had maintained that relationship. And I will still consider her for future opportunities because I know what she has to offer because she's kept herself top of mind for me. LinkedIn. How many of you have LinkedIn profiles? I should see every single hand in this room. So if you don't have one, create one, please. Treat it like your resume. Here's another story. I had a gentleman who just applied to one of our mascots. He lives in the Keys. His house was destroyed during Hurricane Irma. Really sad, right? Guess what was also destroyed? His resume. His video reel of him as a mascot. Had he put all that on LinkedIn or somewhere in the cloud, he'd still have it. So protect yourself, protect your investment in your future by putting it out there on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great place to store your master resume, everything you've ever done before. I was just looking for an executive concierge for our owners. I went on my LinkedIn profile, all my people that I'm connected to, and I searched for executive concierge. And I found a bunch of people recruiting through LinkedIn, and a lot of us do that. So if you're on LinkedIn and you have everything you've ever done, and you have concierge through your experience, I'm going to find you. So do that and gear it towards what you really want to do in the future. Include that link to your profile in your resume that you're sending. So I can click on it. If your name is Jim Jones, there's a lot of Jim Joneses out there. If you include that link, I can click on that link and go right to you instead of that other guy who's not professional. I want to see you. So that helps me get to you. And connect with everybody you know and meet. So connect with the people in this room. One day they might be in a position to hire you, even though they're your classmate right now. One of us in the networking fair or the speakers might be one of those people that you want to be connected to. And when you connect to somebody, so I have about 4,000 connections, you get connections to my connections. So you can reach out to those people and send an email or reach out to them and learn more about what they know. Ask them about themselves and how they got there. People love to talk about themselves. They will tell you all day about their path, and that'll help you figure out yours. Another thing I do is I look at other people's profiles to figure out how to improve my own. And I went to a class, so mine's actually probably a pretty good example. You're all asking me about opportunities with the Buccaneers. All of our positions are posted on Teamwork Online, also on our website. There you go. So at the bottom of our website, every NFL website at the bottom has this bar. So you click on that, it'll get you any open positions that we have. And they're all on Teamwork Online. We have full-time opportunities training camp, which is described here. It's 3.5 weeks in July and August. There's events and team operations. For team ops, you have to be 21 because you're driving our vehicles. We hire probably about 20 to 25 people in those roles. We also hire equipment managers for summertime, about 8 during training camp. Lots of game day roles, but you have to commit to all the home games. And the internships, which are coming up for graduates or those who have completed all their coursework and just need the internship to graduate. Super important. I'd be happy to tell you more about that. And the posting is closed on Teamwork Online, but if you're interested in applying and you haven't done so yet, I've got information. You can send me your information through Wednesday of next week, because you guys are special to me. Sorry, this page got a little screwy. So, I'm going to skip it. So, just think about what's next for you and where you're going. You can apply this information. I think I have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. Yes, ma'am.
When looking at Teamwork Online applications, there's like a paid version that's supposed to make you stand out more as an applicant. Is that like making a difference to you?
To me, it doesn't, but I think to a lot of the hiring managers, it does. If they don't have a recruiter like me, they're going to go into Teamwork and they're going to get 400 applications, and the people who've paid are going to be the first ones that show up. Not in alphabetical order, just the order that you applied. So it can be valuable. It's $65. I think through that, you also get invited to networking events where you get to meet people like me. We'll come and speak for 5 minutes about what we do and then break off. And those events, I think, are really valuable. I've spoken at those. I really enjoyed it. I think all of us could benefit from those opportunities. Next. Yes?
We talked about LinkedIn profile. How often do you look at LinkedIn profile or want that have ever been assigned?
Yes. I look at them regularly. When I get down to my top candidates, I'm going to pull up maybe 5 people that I'm looking at and pull up their LinkedIn resumes. And if they have an unprofessional picture, gone. If they didn't do a good job presenting themselves and they're even with somebody else, everything else, the other person's going to win. So it can set you apart, and it can also remove you. So you always want to make sure it's professional. Again, about that picture. Don't put a picture of yourself in your volleyball uniform or your football uniform. Like shirt and tie, just throw on a coat and go outside in front of a tree and have somebody take a picture of you. You can do it yourself. You don't have to pay for that. Do we have time for a couple more? Somebody else have a question? Yes, ma'am.
I know that you work with the baseball team and football. So working in those roles, were you knowledgeable of the actual sport that you were working in, or was it kind of like?
So when I worked in baseball, when I was in high school, I was the manager of our baseball team, so I really knew baseball, the game itself. I really didn't pay a lot of attention to professional baseball at that point in my life, but I learned everything I needed to know about the team, and it was a brand new team, but I learned it all on the job. And honestly, I learned it on the phones, listening to my customers tell me about their stories of baseball that hadn't been in DC for 33 years. So I got to hear about men crying about how happy they were to have baseball back. For football, I worked in football in college, so I went to football as an adult and part of my career, and I knew the sport again. I know college football. I've never really had a professional football team that I followed, but my dad taught me about football watching the Redskins. So I had a knowledge of it, and my husband is a huge Colts fan, so I would watch the games with him before getting this job. So I had some knowledge, but I was not like a stats queen. I don't think that's necessary unless I'm in a stats job. So some knowledge, I think, is important. You want to be able to sound knowledgeable and know what questions to ask so that you don't end up at a loss for words. Anybody else?
What are the things that like stand out to you or that's something really
I think I just described all of it, but if make it visually appealing, make it so that it's not so many words that I don't want to dig into it, and really relate it to the job description, for sure. There's a question over here. Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned that you were away from the sports industry for about 6 years. So how did you get the opportunity?
I was bartending, and I was really lucky, honestly. One of my clients, I was doing events, and I was managing events for the restaurant that I was working for. And one of the events that I did was for a regular customer. He was the head of a sports marketing firm. I had no idea what he did. He never talked about his work, and I never asked, because when you're at a bar, you want to keep it to fun, right? One day he heard me talking about sports with a colleague, and they walked away, and he said, "Do you like sports?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "Well, tell me a little bit about your involvement." When I told him I worked for the Maryland football team, and he said, "What are you doing behind this bar?" And I said, "Well, it's funny, I got a degree in art, and then I went and got another degree in interior design, and I worked in that field, and I hated it. And now I really don't know what I want to do next." He said, "You're going to come work for me." And he had seen me working there, and I had hosted one of his parties there, and made him look like the king to his clients. They had a Coca-Cola, and all these different high-level sponsors were there. I didn't know who they were. I just treated him like the regular customer that he was, and they were really impressed, and he was impressed as a result, and they wanted to hire me. So just by working hard and having the opportunity to be in front of the right person, honestly. I was very lucky, very lucky. That happened to me twice. I'm not gonna risk, it's not gonna happen a third time. Sir? You have a question?
As somebody who was later in your career, up to this point, maintaining resume, even on the being prepared.
Yeah. I mean, think about the story I just told. I didn't know that guy was gonna offer me a job, and I didn't have my resume ready and prepared for a sports job at that point, but you know that those opportunities are gonna open, those doors are gonna be opening, you never know when. So always keeping your LinkedIn profile up to date, because if you need to pull that stuff into the same layout that you have used for years and years for your resume to apply for a certain job, it's very easy to do. You already have it written and formatted and you know exactly what you did. It's so hard to remember all the little duties in every role from the early part of your career that might relate. And maybe you don't even put those on there because you don't really only want like the last 10 years or so, unless you've done many different jobs in those 10 years. And you want to show longevity within a company. You young people, this is really important. When I look at a resume, it's 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, less than a year, 1 year, 1 year. I'm going to look at the person who's got 2, 3 more years in a role. Because you're a risk. I'm going to be hiring for that role again in a year, probably. I don't want to do that. I want to keep somebody on board for a while. It's super important to maintain. It's super important to be ready for those opportunities. Recruiters are looking at you all the time. I get people who reach out to me all the time trying to, hey, do you know anybody? Which really means, hey, would you be interested in this? So just, every now and then I see a job and I'm like, wow, I actually would really be interested in that. And I do want to be ready to just fire my resume off for that job and just make a few tweaks to it to make it appropriate for that role. Always being prepared is super important, especially, I think, at any level in our career, really, for sure. Did I answer your question? Are we doing?
One more.
Sure.
So you mentioned earlier how it's a good thing to have like a more creative resume, which is taller. How do you find a good balance between trying to do too much with the resume and also preparing for that?
Use your mentors. Create what you think looks good. Don't go crazy. And then go to your mentors and say, hey, what do you think about this? And some of old school folks may say, you know what, don't do that. That's not professional. Just get some feedback from a couple different people, and you'll find that medium balance. But you definitely want to make it stand out. So I've showed you a couple ways that people use it. Another thing, like when I introduced myself, I had 3 logos of the 3 organizations that I've worked with. On my resume, those 3 logos are on there. And when people look at my resume, they can see where I work, and they might just see those and be like, wow, I want to look more, because those are pretty important organizations, right? So if you have if you work for really important, like iconic organizations, use the logos. If you work for people nobody's heard about, don't put the logos in. Does that help?
All right, thank you, Bree. Let's have a big round of applause for Bree.